Hi, my name is Justin Phelps. Today we're going to discuss how to pick the right fire extinguisher to cover your needs. So it all started back roughly fall of 2004. I had a fire. I wasn't prepared. I decided that I needed to go out, get an education. I did. I became a firefighter, 10 years, promoted along the way. Ended up being a training officer responsible for fire safety for the schools. So for me, it became a passion. My failure to plan has put me here, and I'm lucky to be here because I almost didn't make it. Biggest thing to understand on a fire before you can even select an extinguisher is to understand fire itself. A fire tetrahedron has three sides. Those three components, heat, oxidization, and fuel, come together in the right percentages and make a chemical reaction. An extinguisher is meant to take out one of those sides to basically make that chemical reaction not happen. NFPA breaks it down into categories listed by colors, numbers, to designate the fuel that is inside a room. Class A, B, and C are by far the most common. Class A is wood and paper. Class B is flammable fuels such as gas, diesel, kerosene, things of that nature. Class C is anything that is plugged in. I only list Class B. It's becoming more common in things like lawnmower engines. Big hazard there, when it's made of flammable metals and you add water, what happens is it polymerizes and shoots hot molten, almost like a sparkler, pieces of metal everywhere. So you have choices inside your home. You have water, dry powder, foam, CO2, and wet chemicals. Each one works on different aspects of the fire. Some work in a much broader sense. Some are narrowed down to a specific item or hazard. Water extinguisher, typically they're silver. Great thing about water extinguishers, you use it, put tap water in it, pressurize it with a compressor, and away you go. Multiple uses. Dry chem has a chemical compound, a powder chemical compound inside it, and it uses a gas to propel that agent out. And a CO2 extinguisher, essentially a dry ice dispenser. The big difference between those two is the nozzle, because they're both red, but that nozzle or tip on a dry ice dispenser, CO2, is going to be much larger. Biggest thing you want to look at is the size of the room. Size of the room, exits in the room, fire hazards in the room. The key thing to remember when you select an extinguisher, those 2-pounder are cute for the kitchen because they're easy to hide, but those 2-pounders give you 2 seconds. So for every pound of that extinguisher, that gives you the amount of seconds you have. Typically found in kitchen because they're easy to hide, but a 10-pounder is going to give you 10 seconds. 20-pounder will give you 20 seconds. The problem is the bigger you get, it may make it harder for people to use. Again, you want to know the hazards inside your room before you can properly before you can properly pick an extinguisher. Great thing about a water extinguisher, they're easy to maintain, and you have the initial one-time cost. The problem with that is they only cover Class A, and they also have a freeze hazard. Dry chem, probably the most common, can get them just about anywhere, and they're relatively inexpensive. The problem is they require maintenance. Another thing is after you use it, you either have to get it refilled or replaced. They're also horrible on electronics. CO2 extinguisher, they're non-toxic, they don't have that dry powder that comes out. They're also a non-conductive, which is good for electrical hazards, and it holds a charge. If I use it for a little bit, it's still good unless I've used all of it, but it's still usable. Problem is, that dry ice coming out, that bell horn is a potential frostbite hazard. It's not suitable for outside windy conditions. It really plays havoc on that. They're also more expensive. Before you can pick an extinguisher, you need to look at the hazards inside your home. You need to address your specific needs and what your specific concerns are. Got to look at the maintenance side of it. You know, how much do we enjoy doing maintenance? But it's one of those preventative things to make it usable when we're ready for it. That's pretty much it. It's all about educating yourself, finding out what your hazards are, and picking what's best for you. So now we're gonna handle some questions. And typically, the number one question I get is the cost of them. What do these extinguishers cost? So on your 2.5 gallon silver can, you know, your one you can keep on filling, but only good for Class A, those are about $85. I saw them range anywhere from $85 to $110 depending on where you got it from, but you have options. Dry chemical, like a 5-pounder such as this model, not as easy as height as a 2-pounder, but obviously much more agent in there. You can pick those up for $70. 10-pounder, about twice that, about 100, 110, somewhere in that neighborhood. So the biggest difference between these two is going to be your cost. So a 10-pounder for a CO2 extinguisher, it's 140 bucks. That's almost twice the price. And if you go with a 20-pounder, you're about twice the price there. So when you look at that, there's advantages to a dry chem because they're cheaper, they're a little bit more readily available, they're easier to service, but they come with a cost. Often I get the question of how do you use an extinguisher? So it's actually kind of funny. They use the acronym PASS, which is pull a pin. Once you pull that pin, you're going to aim this at the base of the fire. You're going to squeeze the trigger, and what you're going to do is you're going to sweep back and forth, almost like you're cleaning pavement. Biggest mistake I see people do with an extinguisher is they go right at the center of the fire, they pull that trigger, and they say, why isn't it going out? Well, it's not going out because you haven't done what this is intended to do, which is eliminate one of the sides of the fire touch region. So in order to do that, we're trying to separate the oxygen from the fuel and the heat by layering it with a coat or a blanket between the two. So you want to sweep from front to back and basically cover the fire. That puts it out. Oh, yes. So you talk about what did I mean by servicing this. So most people get this, those that plan ahead and want to be proactive, and they'll find a spot in their kitchen, they'll tuck it away somewhere, and it's almost like, or even in their garage, and they'll almost forget that they have it. They're like, yep, there's my extinguisher, I'm good to go. But annually, usually twice a year, I find to be best, you have to take that extinguisher off, you have to literally turn it upside down, and you have to tap it, and you can feel that powder working down. What that does is it remixes that propelling gas and that extinguishing agent together. The last thing you want to do is go to grab your extinguisher, have had it in a spot for a couple of years, and you pull the trigger and all you hear is gas coming out. You failed to maintenance it. By maintaining it, makes it ready and available to you when you need it. So that is actually all the questions that we were asked today. Hope this was informative, and I hope you take the steps to see what extinguisher best fits your needs. Thank you.